Hi, my name is Zelman Ainsworth, and I cannot believe I talked my way into getting Stephen Younane to agree to an interview with me for our video series. During this interview, we're going to talk about what the Samsung brand means to customers, how landlords are reacting differently with retailers, what structural changes can be expected this year in the retail industry. I'm so grateful that Steve has agreed to this interview and has really got this series up and running again. So I hope you really do enjoy watching this. 2020 was a challenging year for everyone, and retail was clearly no exception to that rule. There was a lot of structural changes that happened to the retail market that were very much accelerated, changes that may or may not have already been happening. In your opinion, what was the one biggest structural change to the retail industry?
The biggest structural change is we saw an e-commerce boom. Now, we've been seeing trending with e-commerce, outpacing the growth of physical retail, but we saw a boom. What that meant for retailers is that you had to very quickly identify what are the opportunities, or what are the ways you can capitalize on that boom, and it put enormous pressure on infrastructure of many retailers to try and race to what does this mean for me, But at the same time, it challenged us around trying to reimagine what does physical retail then look like, because this boom way overshadowed physical retail. And there's no doubt that's a permanent structural change. And so now I think the biggest challenge for retailers is, what does the future of physical retail look like? How do you reimagine that? What does that mean for your brand? How do you create a compelling reason for the consumer to come into your physical store versus shop online? So there's a whole lot of stuff around that, as you can imagine. And but I think for retailers, this year has been about, 2020 has been about putting the spotlight on your own business and really looking at it critically and saying, do I have a business that is differentiated, meaningful, and sustainable? And I think we're already seeing retailers and brands that can't answer that question. And hence, I guess we're seeing some casualties. So I think, 2020 as well, I think it's besides separating the strong from the weak, I think it's also brought to the surface sectors and industries that have had now some tailwinds, whether it be health and fitness, whether it be consumer electronics, whether it be your home. We've seen those particular sectors and industries outpace the rest of the market. So there's a lot of, I think, soul searching going on now for many retailers and brands as we start to plan towards the future.
This boom, is it sustainable? And if it is sustainable, where does that leave physical bricks and mortar stores?
Yeah, look, I wouldn't necessarily say that the e-commerce trend at the moment is sustainable at the current rate. It will level out.
How? In your opinion, where? At what number?
Percentage-wise? It's hard because every industry is different, right? So all I can say is that I would say in every case, the e-commerce percentage of a retail's business has grown. Yeah. Maybe from 10, 20 to 30% of revenues, right? Now, I'm not saying it's going to continue on that trajectory, but I think what's happened is that there's a permanent now shift towards a greater slice of our businesses being in the e-commerce space or the online space. So those of us that are very serious about bricks and mortar retail, we've got to very quickly reimagine what does that mean for physical retail.
So Retail Prodigy Group have major licenses like Nike and Samsung, but the license is to open stores only, yes, not online.
Yes.
So you clearly believe that stores there's a huge place for stores moving forward.
Absolutely. And Zelman, look, we found that, when we were in lockdown for long periods of time and, our customers were in sort of isolation, in hibernation, the moment we opened our stores, customers flocked to our stores. I mean, it was just remarkable to see. It almost felt like first day of Boxing Day. It was that crazy, customers desperate to want to interact with physical retail, get into the spaces, touch the product, try it on, feel it, engage with staff members on the shop floor. I think it's part of the Australian shopping culture. Yeah. Physical retailing is still a thing. And look, I mean, there is going to be consolidation. There is no doubt about that. Retailers will start to think about what's that optimal mix between physical retail and online. And I think we'll see some consolidation. And we have seen it. Stores closing. What's that right balance between the physical and the online?
Yeah, it's unfolding in front of our eyes now. It's a fascinating time in the industry.
Absolutely.
Steve, what is the one biggest lesson you took out of last year?
How people valued brands and valued partnerships and relationships. And I say that from every level. So from our team members and how important our culture was in terms of the support that we got from our team members in our stores, being on the front line, being prepared to rock up every day, put themselves at risk to serve customers. So talk about a proud moment for me, which I think epitomized our culture and our focus on the ultimate customer experience. I'll never forget the commitment that our team members have made back to RPG in terms of rocking up to work each day and serving customers. Our relationships with our landlords was really tested. I think that I'll be honest with you and say, in some cases I was really disappointed, in other cases I was pleasantly surprised. I think we throw around that term partnership a lot in the property sector, that landlord-tenant sort of relationship. And I think my biggest learning in that year was how important those relationships are and how those partnerships have to become stronger for the future. If we're going to survive, we're going to have to ensure that we've got true partnerships with landlords, not just in title, but in true form. And what that means for me is that, first of all, I'd be asking our landlords to think and act like retailers, like put the retailer hat on for a moment. We're the guests in your hotel. So treat us like guests. And I think that we've got to move out of this transactional relationship to a true partnership, where true partnerships in my mind is that it's got to be a win-win. So it means that we share in the upside. When we're winning, we want to share that. But when times are tough, we've got to share the pain as well. I don't see any other path forward. I just really don't. And I'm pleased to say that, we've got some landlords that are already thinking that way and working with us that way. But unfortunately, some and many aren't. And all I can tell you is that we're going to do our best to try and forge those relationships, and it's not going to be easy.
RPG have about 49 retail stores. I'm sure there's a couple of double ups with landlords, but yes, you have many, many landlords.
Yes.
How have you managed and foster that relationship through a rocky period and now into 21? And if you can give your landlords one message, what would that message be?
I think what 2020 did for us is that it really shone the light on the true colours of our landlords. I think that's when our relationships were put to the test, and I think they often say that when you're under pressure, when you're in a crisis, your true character comes to light. And I saw that in all areas of our business, not just landlords, but our team members and other suppliers, our brand partners. I think, but specifically as it relates to landlords, I think that it's understanding that as retailers, we need the landlords, and I suspect the landlords need us. So you've got to start with that premise that we're in this together, and our futures depend upon how solid our relationships are. And I don't want to underplay that. I mean, that is going to be probably the most critical pillar for the future viability of retail. And so my advice to landlords would be, please walk in our shoes. Seek to understand, what it means to be a retailer. Try your best to think and act like retailers, and work with us on win-win agreements that mean that together we can share in the success of the future, but also too, when those times are tough, stand by us and understand that, that we're going to equally share the pain as well. I just don't see any other way forward.
When you say work with you in that way, is that like helping out with rents and turnovers, or is getting involved in your business and understanding your product line, your profit margins, your staffing, your marketing?
Well, look,
Where does the buck stop?
Yeah, look, I think first of all, it's understanding that every retail business has a very different economic model. You know, am I high sales, low sales, high margin, low margin, high wages, low? I mean, you know, every business has its own economic model. You know, rental has to sit in there somewhere in that P&L. And it's margin that actually pays the rent, not sales, right? So
That's a very good point. And that's
so
something
it's
that's
understanding. So I could have a business that has low sales, high margin, very comfortable. But another business that might have high sales, low margin. So it's about the margin, not about the sales. And so it's understanding that every economic model is different for different retailers, and it's how and what does that P&L item look like. I think, I've heard you talk about this, and I think this is probably part of the unlock, is that having a fixed component of the rent and a variable component of the rent. I think that model, feels about right, because I think the variable component can be that thing that we share in, and the fixed piece of it, I get that landlords, have to ensure that they're showing a certain sort of asset value. And so that fixed component is important. I'd love total variable, but I understand that there are some, constraints that our landlords have as well. And that's what I mean. We just got to work together, be transparent. What do you need? What do we need? Let's try and find that middle ground. I think we'll get there. I really do. And quite honestly, I don't think we've got any choice. I think it's going to be forced upon us, one way or another.
That debate is happening now out in the press as we speak. Yeah. And your one message to retailers, if you can talk to the retail community, what would that message be?
I have a lot of respect for many of the retailers in this country, and I know how tough it's been for many retailers. We're fortunate that we've got, some amazing brands in our portfolio that have been supported with some tailwinds. I talked about sports and fitness, technology, home, etc. I think it's really about taking a step back and looking in the mirror and taking a critical view of your business. I think you've got to be critical. You've got to ask yourself this question. I say this, and I've said this before. If you fell off the face of the earth tomorrow, would your customer notice? And secondly, would they care? You got to be honest in answering that question. I think that's probably the best advice I can give. They're tough questions. They're very tough questions to answer.
That's a really powerful thing to have to kind of think about. Very confronting.
It is.
But it's time now.
It's time. And I think if nothing else, I think what in 2020 has done is it's forced us all to be more critical about our own businesses. Deep dive into the model, understand, what makes the business tick. Where are those pain points? Where's those opportunities to connect with your consumer? Is that online, offline? What does that all mean? But from the outset, is my brand meaningful? Is it on the top 5 brands that the customer thinks about when they wake up each morning and go to a mall, for example, or go online? If it's not, you've got some challenges, I think. That's the reality of retail today.
Steve, thank you very, very much for allowing me to interview in front of your new iconic brand and partner. It's a real privilege to talk to you. And more importantly than anything else, thank you for the entire interview, never mentioning the C word. I'm sick to death of hearing about it. It's behind us. Let's leave it there.
Yes.
So it's great that you've moved on, and you can see that way you're expanding and dealing with your business, you're really just moving on and getting on with it. But I must admit, during this entire interview, your double black Air Force One Nike sneakers have really been distracting me. Are those on sale now?
They are. This is the triple black Air Force.
Triple black.
Yeah, triple black Air Force One. Our core consumer knows what they are.
Right. Which I pretend to be.
Triple black, triple white. One of the hottest selling shoes at the moment. So, we're struggling to keep them in stock on our shelves. But I'm pretty sure, Zelman, if you just walk around the corner here, High Point, now Nike store, I reckon you'll be able to find a pair.
Well, if they look like those, I'll grab them.
Great. Fantastic.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And good luck and congratulations. This is a massive, massive win for your business and well-deserved. So thank you.
Thank you, Zelman.